Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Coming Out Stories from India series. Coming out. What is it? Coming out is a term used primarily in the LGBT community when a queer person shares about their sexual orientation, usually with friends and family. Nicola and I decided to launch these Coming Out Stories from India to ensure we all work together in changing the narrative. The last few years, since my own coming out, I have been looking for role models, stories that can help me in my own journey. There was hardly any, and if at all, not in depth enough. What was common to most is the challenging journeys that each one of us have. But we also discovered that not all stories are that of pain, suffering, and trauma either. This is when Coming Out Stories from India took shape to bring to our audience real people with their real stories, real lived experiences. However, keeping in mind the complexities of India. Hopefully, these coming out stories can pave the way for those who are in any phase of their own coming out journey. I'm Raga Olga D'silva, for Totally Out Now, as you know me. Today's guest. Well, I must say one thing about today's guest. I remember meeting him in Noida at a literary festival for the first time. And I must say one thing, it was love at first sight. I've loved this man. He is beautiful inside out, and he has many things to his credit. He's a TEDx speaker. You will see him online doing a lot of inclusive conversations almost every day. He's he's got like bottomless energy. He's a huge voice for the LGBTQIA community, and he's an activist. He has many things to his credit. But today, I want to unpeel this beautiful, gorgeous human on Coming Out Stories from India. Please join me in welcoming Akassh K. Aggarwal.
Thank you, Raga. It's always a privilege and a pleasure to be here. And thank you for what you're doing for back home India. Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, we'll spend the next 45 minutes thanking each other. But let's start with this. Akash, first of all, I really needed to say to you that I think my life is, blessed by having someone like you in my life, really. Both Nicola and I talk about it quite a bit. You're an amazing soul. I love reading all your posts. But I also feel when I read them, there is a lot of history. There is something there, which is why it prompted us to say, let's invite Akash to our
Yeah.
coming out stories, because I know for sure behind this glowing, smiling face, there is a very interesting journey. So, Akash, can we start at the start? Can you tell us about a bit of your family background? Where do Agarwals come from?
Oh, absolutely. But as you said, you must have known a little about me through my Facebook post. Then you must have known also the fact that my grammar is too bad. And I want to discuss that with you because that also shows my journey of coming from the fact that I never went into a school where English was a priority, or communication was a priority, or communication was a plus point. All we were told was to go learn, suck it up and go and have some grace marks or good marks and stuff, and I was very bad at it. So getting back to me, my life, my school, I'm born in Delhi 6, Raga. I'm born in Delhi 6. Delhi 6 is as it is called in Chandni Chowk. It's a humbled walled city area next to Red Fort, you know. And Delhi 6 also happens to be the first colony in Delhi. That area is the first colony area in Delhi where people where the Shah Jahan set up his own city. Now, coming from that kind of a heritage background where my grandfather came Delhi from Uttar Pradesh in while he was just 14, and I recently lost him in 2020
Sorry.
while he was 94. He spent 80 years of his life in Delhi, and those 80 years of life was told to us as well. We have lived Delhi in past with him, and I will always live Delhi in future as well with his blessing. So we were able to understand the fact that if I was not very underprivileged while I was born in a family, but my grandfather came from time where he had to self-sustain himself and the family every day. Okay, so I was very fortunate enough to come from a family which was, by then, while we were born, the third generation, our family was well known. Our family is well known as well. So, absolutely, we come from a Banya, Agrawals called Banyas, and all of those caste, creeds, and all that. How we actually love to divide in India and love to recognize ourselves belongs to certain caste or certain culture. But for me, I was always a misfit, even being a Agrawal as well. And because my friends, anybody who used to meet me often used to say, "Are you Punjabi?" I said, "Why?" Because I'm white, fair, and fat. You don't expect banyas to be. So people typecast you how you look to your caste and creed, and that was really off. And also, I was never able to understand these identity tags because I was always looking forward to break mine. So somebody telling me, "Oh, you're Agrawal, you're a Bania, you're good at maths." I was very bad at maths. Used to get compartments, uh, and then there was people who used to say, "Oh, you're a boy, you have to behave like this." And I'm not. I was not a boy. I was just Akash. You know, all I knew was it's I am. Raga. I My first encounter of my sexuality happened not by my own self, but when somebody abused or tried to abuse me. You know.
Okay, we'll come to that. We'll come to that. We'll go slow, slow. Okay, so thank you for sharing your background about the Agarwals. And two things I want to comment on. One is, I think you communicate
I lost you.
beautifully. Can you hear me, Akash?
Yeah, but I lost Raga. Yeah, okay.
Okay, okay. So I'll start that again. I said thank you. I will have thank you for sharing about the Agarwal family. And what I want to talk about is two things that you pointed out. One is that about communication. I think you communicate beautifully, Akash, really. So whether we learned that in school or not, I mean, I come from a similar background. I think often we get taught English in Hindi in the schools that we
Perhaps.
come from, right? And then over the years we learn and we develop a skill. So you're a fantastic communicator. I love the way you think and you express yourself. And the second part is that you spoke about stereotype, and we'll come to that as well. Right from our childhood, everybody's stereotyped, and there is a type, put for everybody, right? And we put into boxes. But coming back to your upbringing, you grew up in Delhi. Okay, for audience who are watching, Chandni Chowk, please look it up. Chandni Chowk, it's beautiful. Isn't there where the Parathe wali gali is?
Oh, absolutely. I'm very much next to that area.
Oh, I mean, it is a walled city. It takes you back 100 years. Every time we go there, we think, "Wow, is this like India?" You get the best of street food there, so please do visit, and the best of people, of course. It's old
Yeah,
Delhi. Yeah.
yeah.
So now coming back to your childhood. So you grew up basically in that old Delhi. So I'm assuming that the thought process, the attitudes also were conservative and traditional. So tell us about your family and how many of you in the family growing up?
Not conservative, but traditional for sure. At least that's how we were raised. And to tell you, Raga, I've raised, I've lived 20 years of my life in joint family system, which was very much normal and is normal in India. So my father had five brothers and two sisters. It means eight plus him. And then we each brother had his own family of a wife and two or three children. And most of these six brothers with their six spouses, with their grandparents and their children, were living in one big house. You know, we had common toilets, we had common kitchens, we had common play area, there was no personal bedrooms, there was no personal space, there was no idea of personal space, or personal closets, to be very frank. So being raised in that fabric, which I completely treasure, which I always say it's been a best experience, at least for me, to today, where I expect my own space, my own privacy, and my own, I want to put out my own point of view, which is not often encouraged in joint family system because you're considered too small to put an opinion or too young to do things. Having said that, there's something which I really want everybody to know because it is coming out stories and how I came out from my mother's womb, not as gay. I came as a sixth child of my mother. My mom had five daughters before me. Two of them couldn't even survive for a very long time with us. one of it one of my sister was adopted by an extended family member because there were just too many girls to be raised by a family. And I want to address this very openly because we have to know the fact that, to people who say that there's no discrimination anymore, I have seen that discrimination just one generation before me, so why should I say that it doesn't happen, right? So I came after five daughters by my parents, and sixth son, which absolutely is a daughter essence, you know. So to all those people who think that you'll have a boy and you'll have a you'll be like have a safe, how what a tag a boy has to go through with, and I was not ready for it forever. Though my father raised us very liberally, he was a man of words. He is one of the most, no, I lost him while I was 20. But I still remember his funeral had almost more than 2,000 people, Raga. The whole Chani Chowk got shut down for his service. So that famous a man, that known a man, and suddenly is me left after him who was asked by people to be like my father. And I was like, oh, but I can't. I realized very early that if I know that my father was successful in his field and I'm not, and I'm like zero there, I would not step in into his shoes, but I'll do my own,
We'll
create
come.
my
We'll
own.
come to that. We'll come to that, Akash. So I'm going to come back to your childhood. Okay. So you're saying that you lived in a joint family, an extended family. So for viewers who are watching, Akash explained what a joint family system in India is. There are multiple
Yeah,
families, within our families that live together and quite harmoniously. Actually, it's
yeah,
interesting how it's a little mini Delhi six within Delhi six in your house, right?
yeah,
And you learn to basically adapt to each other, adapt to the spaces that you don't have, confined spaces, and the families actually basically accept you for who you are, mostly. And it's a very mostly, I would say, and it's an interesting journey. Extended families and it's an interesting journey, an interesting experience, I would say. But Akash, when you were growing up, and now we're talking about much later, what you know. But I'm talking about growing up time. Did you find yourself, like you said, that your mother had five girls, gave birth to five girls, and you're the sixth one, and you still, it was still kind of a girl. That's what you kind of hinted at. So, did you know, what did you think of yourself? Did you have a gender? I mean, those days we didn't even have these conversations, right? That we have
yeah.
now. So, did
Oh,
you, yeah.
there was no communication. There was no reference points. There were no icons. There was no one to look up to and say, okay, I'm so and so, except the transgender who used to come at our house on Holi Diwali, or if a child is born, to do the dancings and all, or to if we see a transgender on the road. Those were the identity we had for very long, Raga. So, and I still remember, I used to be very afraid whenever a transgender used to come into our house, to the fact that I hope she doesn't recognize who I am.
Wow. And how old were you when you had this?
And I have
Sorry.
no idea, but I don't know why I'm saying this. And what I was must be 7, 8 years,
Wow.
but I don't know who I am. But I'm afraid of this person, that this person knows me. I don't know what I am, but I can relate myself to that transgender dancing in my courtyard back home. And this child who has no idea about his own sexuality or his preference or his choices at the age of 7 and 8. But I used to be very afraid that if they recognize me who I am, and if they told my parents, then
Wow. So tell me, did you were you treated differently by your parents or your extended family? Is that the
no,
why you felt that perhaps?
no, not at all. I was not treated differently. I was not even treated by my father like a very man. He had expectations of a boy child very much, but he was not very pushy of, he was not a very dominating alpha male dad. Like, he was not like that. He was a very gentle, noble, liberal person, and he used to do all the virtues, if I have any, is because of him. And so I had a my upbringing have been good, touch wood. I was I've never been traumatized of who I am at my home. Uh, yes, there was a issue in joint family of who I am, which we can discuss whenever you feel like in the time to come. But yeah, my parents let me be.
Excellent. So Akash, this is what I want to understand. You're 7 and 8 years old, 7, 8 years old, transgender, who sadly in India have slurs called hijra, chakka,
Chapka.
and yeah, and there's a negative connotation attached to those names. So obviously
Yeah.
there is also stories told to us as children saying they will come and pick you up and kidnap you
Yeah.
and take you, right?
Yeah.
So there are all those fears around transgenders. You've grown around that. At what point, I'm just trying to understand, how would you describe yourself? Because you said uh, your father was also not an alpha male. So how would you describe yourself as a child? Would you describe yourself, and I'm going to use the word effeminate because at one during one of our conversations you used that word for yourself, previous conversation.
But I don't know. Trust me, when I look back to that Akash was what I have no idea. I cannot even typecast him right now from today. Like I don't know what that Akash was like. That Akash was actually living up to everything. Yeah, that I can remember. I was living up to how my parents wanted me to be. I was living up to what I wanted to be. I was living up to any and everybody's expectations. So if that was the real Akash, I don't know. But that I was okay. But yeah, sexually or gender orientation wise, to tell you, I've been feminine from the day 1994 when I was just aging 6, right? So because I don't know if we had this conversation or not, but Sushmita Sen has a huge impact on my life, right? She became Miss Universe in 1994, and she became my everything. My father. She actually, when Sushmita came back in India, she did her parade, her victory parade in Delhi. My father took me there accidentally, and I saw my diva and I saw my icon and I saw the person I was wanting to be or to who I still love. And she left a lot of impact. That her, what I saw that day, which is still in my memory, is that how she was celebrated. That's it. That parade, that moment left me how a person can be celebrated. I always wanted to be celebrated. That I was sure of. How and what actually happened later. My gender identity started taking its own curve much later. I like when I lost my father at 20, I was not a very feminine person by then, you know. And as you know, as I told you, that I come from a background where being who we are, were just not that clear in communication. There were no reference point. So I took 7 years to self understand who I am. From age 13, 14 to age 21, all I was doing was suffocating, finding out who I can be. With time came Google, with time came some other app, with time came some other Yahoo messengers and stuff like that. We have seen internet coming India in front of us, right? The cyber cafe scene. So I was just discovering myself with year and year. I was almost like how he said, I was peeling off myself, you know.
Layer by layer. So
Yeah.
Akash, so when you were in school in Delhi, so were you kind of marginalized or were you bullied because of how you were?
Yeah, I was bullied for being fat, fair, and feminine. I have often said that. Yeah. So, but initial bully was for me being fat, and then it became the issue of me started being feminine in 11th, 12th, and yeah. So it was. I was a good ball in the game. I was being kicked around, and I was bullied and bruised as well, Raga. Bruised emotionally and physically. Uh, and what was the main issue was the fact is that the whole system is a part to that game. To the ones who are playing were the only players, but who were felicitating that play, who give the ground to the bully in school, are also responsible. Though I come from a school which I'm very proud of, but my school enabled bullies as well, or the teachers, few of the teachers who could have saved a child like me or a child like many like me from not being bullied. So if we were not sensitized or understood who we are, why were our faculties never knew who we can be?
How interesting this is. I'm having these conversations on coming out stories from India, as you know, with many, and this is a common thread. And I'm very sad and actually, like I said, shameful, ashamed to hear that our teachers are not sensitized. And therefore, an education system, that's where a child starts, right? All of us, that's a basic ground and
Yeah.
common ground for all of us. So I'm just going to ask you this question. When you say that you were emotionally and physically abused or bullied, can you give us some examples? What does that really mean? In what way?
Not an example, but a fact. uh, so I tell you, I was in class 9th and I was admitted in a hospital because my hemoglobin went to 6.
Oh,
Okay, and it was dropping with time. And the doctors were failed to understand why it is happening. So my bone marrow was to happen. So I was okay to diagnosis what is there, what is the issue. I remember the morning, the noon in which I had to have my operation. In that morning, they came in a staff in the hospital. So you know how there used to be a ustara. Now I don't know. There was a razor, right?
razor.
The old razor. The staff who came to do bone marrow on my body, you know how they have to do the cleaning part and hygiene and everything. You know, Raga, he started exploring my body while I was just 9th and I never knew what's happening with me. This man who was just there to remove some hairs from my body started exploring my body. And by the end of 20 minutes of hygiene session, which was there, because at that time you don't have parents also in back room, you have to be with that staff. His fascination or his that disgust was this, that he closed down that razor and he inserted in my rectum, you know, and all I thought that it is a part of the process. Trust me. All I thought that I'm in a hospital and this is supposed to happen because he was not penetrating himself, but doing other stuff which must be exciting him or giving him kick. For me, inserting a razor might be okay. It might would have he might be doing something which is supposed to be done. But later the reports came in the biopsy that I have a ruptured rectum, and I still have that report. And you know, where and I keep that report very close to me
This is
because
shocking.
that report signifies the fact that stop taking your boy child for granted. Stop letting your boy child be in the hands of criminals. Your boy child can be equally vulnerable, you know.
Yeah, but Akash, I mean, this is shocking. I'm sorry that you had to go through it, and but you're right. There are a lot of these things that happen in the background, and that is why awareness and education is really important. That is why it is important for people like yourself who have experienced this to share their experience and share the trauma of how it still lives in you, right? Yeah. So Akash, when you were bullied, so that is one form of bullying, of course. But when you were also bullied in other forms, can you say
Yeah,
the kind of words? What did they call you? Did they call you names? And what kind of names were
absolutely.
called?
Chaka or hijra was much common. Also, they were fat shaming me so mota, or they were. I think these were the common tags, and then the abuse has no margins; it is limitless, right? So then the kind of filth they can put you through and put you onto, and it was there. But I don't know. When I look back to all of that, now I have no regret anymore to what happened with me because I have self healed myself, or I have, as many of us in the community, as the word queer itself, have been taken by us in absolute pride. You know, with absolute pride. So I don't even care to all those words they were saying then, because I also know the fact that it's not their fault. It was not their fault. They were raised like that. They've been introduced to the idea of somebody who is unique should be considered odd but not unique. So the whole idea, because we don't want to say that our child is unique, but we want to say our child is odd and needs therapy and needs this and needs that. So why would, like, I have no regrets to those people who have been heinous to me. My more regret, because they were also of my age or of my queer. And but my only regret, as I told you again, is from the educational institutions and our faculties in place who could have really been vigilant. So
Yeah.
now when you know that I am into activism, my basic activism in the space of education only. you know I go to schools and colleges and talk about it, and I make sure the faculty should stay for those half hour or 1 hour with us, instead of she's going out in the in a walkway. So yeah, that's been my journey.
Excellent. I mean, it's a fantastic form of activism anyway, Akash, because you're right about schools and teachers or faculties actually being the people who actually change the narrative, right? They don't understand. They bully you. They make comments. We had somebody earlier on a show and who said their teacher actually slapped them. They actually, I mean, seriously, you know. But Akash, how was it at home for you? Did your because when you come from an extended family, did your family tease you? In the name of banter, in the name of masti, did they say things to you?
No, but as I told you, by 21, my early year till age 20, I was with them. But then we moved into our own space where I was living with my mom and my sisters. Uh, you know, and their intrusion in our family was less by then. And I came out very late, Raga. I came out in 2017 publicly.
We'll get
Just
there. We'll
four.
get there. Akash, sorry, I'm
No,
interrupting. What I'm
why I'm saying is this, because I came out very late, so my early years were not full of embarrassment or abuse or boycott. I saw it very late in my life. So because I lost my father very early, my initial years after 20 were all about setting my self. So many people who say to me that, Akash, wow, you're different than many gays we know. They all just talk about body. But you're a designer, but you're this, but you're that. I say because they have been vilified for their bodies. I'm not. I've been thankful to my parents or my God that I had roof on my head and bread on my plate, that I had nothing to do with going out midnight on a road and sex trading myself. You know? So if my queer counterparts are obsessed about their body, is because the fact that they have been abused and harassed and harrowed because of their body. Yeah.
So what I'm trying to get at, Akash, thanks for sharing that. What I'm trying to get at is in your first 21 years. See, that's a whole phase of, all discovery phase for
Yeah.
all of us. We don't even
Yeah.
know many things. We know that there's something different. I mean, for me, I knew that I was a misfit. I felt it like a misfit.
Yeah.
Why? I didn't know. Okay,
Yeah.
I only arrived at the conclusion much, much, much later in my life. So I'm just trying to understand while you're living your life, you've got cousins and you've got extended families, you go to a school, they bully you go to college, they bully you. How was the atmosphere at home? Did your parents, your mother in particular, feel that there was something? Did you have someone to go and speak with about what was happening?
No, no, not at all, because I was not taking what was happening to me outside of home back home. So what
Okay.
was happening with me was just outside of the home. And I never had that intention, because I never knew who I am. मैं घर पे जाके, what will I tell to them? Who I am, what I am. So I never had these kind of conversations with my family, because I was very much, and you know why also, Raga? Because we were illegal to be who we are. So if I start a conversation by telling people openly that I'm gay, I got the fact that I'm illegal, I'm a criminal, my existence is criminal. I had to make sure my existence of being a criminal has to be under the closet. So if I was not in the closet, but I was making sure that, because I was bullied enough in my school, I have to tell you what I did in my college. I had a fake girlfriend, Raga, an imaginary girlfriend from day one. That imaginary girlfriend, who was never introduced publicly or personally, but was in my talks. Oh, I have to go with my girlfriend, guys. Sorry, I cannot come. I was pushing and making it even because I was very sure I don't want my school life to be repeated in my career, in my
College.
college. I was extra guarded. I used to fake out this all stuff.
My God, I cannot imagine that. So you're living a pretend double life, right?
Yes.
Only because you don't want that bullying to be repeated. So how
Yeah.
did you? So when was your first, sorry, real experience in an intimate manner with another person of the same gender?
Okay.
I need to know.
Yeah, no, why not? Absolutely. To this man who, so I tell you what happened because of all the trauma I was going on and the peer pressure, I was very suicidal. And my body weight, though I'm obese as of now also, but my body weight was 130 at that time. Okay. And I'm talking to you about 2014 this, about this in 2014. And I'm this 130 kgs odd boy who for a very first time told by someone I'm beautiful, who for the first time told me to see my own stripped body in the mirror because I was not doing that for a long time. He told me you have to strip off at front of the mirror and see your body and start loving it. This man is my best friend till date, and I surrendered myself towards him for long. And yeah, so that man who made me feel beautiful is the one I we had intimacy. I had in my intimacy with him, and it's been beautiful.
Can I ask you when was this? How old were you with your first experience?
2014 means what? 24, 23? Yeah.
So great. So at that time, so you kind of discovered yourself. You've had your first experience, and were you able to then again express it to somebody? I'm just trying to find out if Akash, you had someone really close to you who you could be yourself with.
Okay, a very good friend then. Okay, you know, I don't know if you know, we say Didi to anybody we know is of our tribe. Okay, we say Didi, we say hey sister. So this friend of mine who was a very out loud proud gay living by himself was from Haryana, was born in a Jat family, but was living in Delhi, and I happened to met him through a friend, and this person was a party freak, had people coming going, and was living a very fascinating life. I still feel like okay, though we I lost him because of he got cancer and stuff like that. But that person, you know, his name was Anik Verma, and the whole industry knows him. He was one of the most influential public relation individual in back in Delhi. You know, he used to handle PR for a lot of celebrities. So that person really also helped me to come out and to explore to places I was not going to, like to a club or to a meeting place or to being out loud and telling people, okay, I'm here. You know, yeah. So to the Akash you met at Noida and to the Akash many know is very different. Like my journey has been very slow and smooth.
Wonderful. And it should be like that, slow, because it's a process of your own self
Yeah.
discovery, right? Yeah, Akash, like we talk about LGBTQ and the nomenclature, titles we've given to everything. It's so common to us. I understand it now. Queer, lesbian, gay. Seriously, I've been out only 2 years, by the way,
Yeah.
publicly. So I'm learning as well. But what is interesting is that I'm going back to a situation where you also didn't know the terms we don't know, right? Homosexual tha, tabhi. The word they use, like I said, hijra, chakka. Everybody was boxed. Now even I'm boxed in that, by the way, because they don't know the difference between a lesbian and a trans person or a hijra or a chakka.
Yeah.
So it is sad. So our job is to educate people. But from a community like that, which are LGBT community, we are aware. We know these words. But going back to your family, when you yourself didn't know, but let's say you have to sit with your parents and tell them, I am from this community. What do you tell them? क्या बोलो? I am gay. They say ये gay क्या होता है? तो happy
Oh
gay means
God,
being happy.
I
So
know, very no, very true, Raga. It's very difficult. It's very difficult to tell them, to make them feel comfortable to associate my identity to a word to which they look down and the society at large look down. But you know what I did, Raga? I never came out. As I told you, I came out very late. No, so before that, with God's grace, I had a lot of laurels, and I should not be self-boosting myself.
please.
Not at all. I'm not that person, but that helped me. My desire, being a designer, helped me. My being a social activist, and going for protests for feminist and rape threats in India and stuff like that was helping me. My idea of being out, open, and loud about anything in matter to human rights and civil rights was very much there. My drawing room conversations were always about equal rights or the issues happening in the country or the issues happening in the society. So then my issue was just one of them. It was not a big, bump for them.
Right.
So because they knew that their child is already talking about 10 other things which is not common in conversations back home. So because we had that kind of atmosphere in my drawing room, in my home, me telling my mom that I'm so and so became literally little easy.
Okay. So
You
tell me,
know,
so if you told your mom about it, did you, I just want to understand how did you tell her? Because the word gay, for us, we understand.
yeah.
But, certain people may not understand what the word gay means.
Okay. So you know what? I I did a show in 2017 on transgender rights. I've been one of the first Indian designers who got transgender models on ramp, and these models were paid, and they were not just trophy models closing the show. They were the part of the pool. After that, there was a media person who interviewed me and said, "Why you got trans individuals? Why would you do that?" I said, "Because I'm one of them, and it's my responsibility." So I had a lineage of good shows. I had lineage of good name in industry, but all my joint family or extended family was worried about me saying on public television that I'm a part of the community. That interview made my come out for people around me. In spite of the fact I was feminine by then, as I'm now, I was having a heel shoe, I was having colossal, a kajal, had my nail art done, was doing things not that expressively as I do now, but I was starting. It's almost like just say how a 18-year-old woman would behave. I was behaving like that. Then at 25 you behave differently. At 30 you behave differently. So I was at that space. So when my family got shocked, my extended family got shocked and called my mom, "Do have you seen this YouTube interview of your son?" That's how we started having a conversation back home. And that's how one fine day, after that phone call, I sat with my mom and said, "Okay, mom, though we never discussed it, it has been a very silent and a mutually respected space. But as people are telling you, let me tell you officially that I am gay." It was like that. But my mom was already in process to tell me, "Okay, your kajal is there. Okay, your ring is there. Okay, I see your heel shoe lying there. Get it out, put it back." So while she was letting me live, being gay was not the only thing. My friends used to tell me, "So why don't you tell your mom that you're gay?" I said, "But why? I don't want a drama back home. My main lead is missing. My hero is missing. मेरे को क्यों stage लगाना है? मुझे नहीं लगाना है. Let me have a man who would say I'm with you, and then I'll tell my mom that there's a reason for me to go back home and take this mess." So somehow, and that also shows the fact that for a very long time I used to identify myself being gay around an existence of a man. Raga, I myself want to call out that for a very long time we tell that, okay, you're a woman, okay, you're gay, okay, you're feminine, means you need to have a man to roam around. No, now I know my femininity has nothing to do me to do a man to validate it or not. But at that time, I was not coming out because I thought I'm single, I'm lonely, I'm by myself. Why to take a drama at home?
Interesting, very interesting. I mean, you touched upon a very interesting point because we all do that. When I was married, one of the reasons I would justify it and say, I can't come out until I find somebody. We're always looking for something. Or in your case, I think what I really appreciate that you were independent at a very young age. When you're
Yeah,
financially independent, I tell my audience that quite a bit, and other I mentor, that make sure that you get financial independence. That's also very critical, because times are the same, right? You can be thrown out of the house. But I'm so interested in your mother. And when you shared, when we
absolutely.
started the conversation, we used the word, I said conservative and traditional, and you said the word traditional. And I'd love to have a photo of your mom here, and we'll get that shortly. So I want to know, how does a traditional Indian mother,
Yeah, so
yeah,
this is
who
my
has had
mom.
five, five daughters, then has a
Yeah,
son,
yeah,
does that put pressure on her to have a son, to bring take on the legacy of the patriarchy that we have? Does it
yeah,
put pressure? Did it
Raga.
put pressure on you as well?
Raga, Lord, my mom has been an angel, has been God sent, has been a real woman of substance. And my brand name is in awe of my mother. My brand name is called Subhashini Ornamentals. My mom's name is Subhashini Aggarwal. So that's how I associated my identity with my mom and my brand. My mom, it was not fighting only about the fact that his child was a gay. My mom was also addressing the fact that she was, since beginning, while she was asked to have girls a child back to back, back to back, back to back, back to back. Can you imagine the trauma a woman must be going through? In spite of the fact that there was no pressure by my father but by the joint family system, and they both had to surrender to their will. you know they had to surrender to the family's will of having a boy child. Her trauma started that. The health complexities a woman can go after multiple pregnancies like this. Then her daughters who are elder to me, we still live together. My elder daughters are not yet married. That is also a very big trauma and taboo back in India. Still, it doesn't matter if you're a working girl or not, but you have to have married. So I have my extended family telling my mom that, oh, it's so sad that your daughters are not yet married, your son is gay. So my mom is like such a courageous woman. So many people say, how courageous your son. I said, no, my mom is courageous. That's it. It's she, not us. We're still living off and for ourselves or for many like us. But to my mom to accept me, you know, or to my mom to let me bloom, and to my mom to stand by me and to let me be me is not easy.
I salute your mom, really. We need more mothers like this, Akash, really. This is also a very important topic to talk about, because parents are so important for us, right? That's when we feel safe. Unconditional love is important for especially queer folks like us who come out to our
Rather,
parents.
if we don't have parents like mine and many like in our community, like many like Harish's mother, like other, yeah, individuals who have, if we will not have parents like these, we will never have this interview and this conversation. I might be also standing one block next to a area and begging for my survival. It's a fact. My reason of sitting here and being Akash K. Aggarwal has to do a lot with my parental and family support. Nothing to do with me initially. If I don't have a bread on my plate, a roof on my head, I would be all worried about that instead of doing this interview.
I agree with you, and that is why, when things like conversion therapy that I said we will touch upon really bother me, because I have been hearing of more and more cases. Because every morning I wake up and I get these emails and messages, which I'm sure you do as well. And more cases are being identified of people who are talking about it. They come out to their parents, and their parents offer them a solution in the form of conversion through medical intervention, which can also be a shock, given shocks, really in a psych unit or a mental unit facility, or religious intervention where they do all kinds of horrible things to you to get the bhoot out, to get your disease out, to cure you. Akash, we are so fortunate we didn't have that. But tell me, was that something ever considered for you?
Offered by a cousin. So when I came out, my my very good cousin, with all absolute respect for him, took me for a drive. And he said, let's have a conversation man to man. Oh God, he never knew there's no man to man, but like that. Okay, so he said, see, understand one thing. My very good friend was like you. He went to a doctor. There was injections available. There's a course to do that. And now he has a wife. Now he has children. I'm like, okay. I'm like, Bhaiya, I can also have child. I'm not impotent. So people mix impotency to identity of sexual identity, right? And then he was like, "Kya matlab?" But he was just too elder to me to begin the conversation further. And I said him, okay. But I really said it, Raga. I said, okay, why not? I will look it into it. I was, man, I was not someone who was fighting out with people. I'll tell you through your this interview that what saved me a roof was me being patient, me being available to have a dialogue 100 times if somebody is looking forward for a civil dialogue. I took 7 years. I was ready to give my mother 17 years. Are you? Are you not? If you can take and figure out yourself with 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, you want your parents to accept you in 2 minutes? Sorry, not practical, not relatable. I never went out of the closet by wearing my mother's closet on me. And I might sound stupid and rubbish, but this is my suggestion. You want to come out of the closet? Use your own closet while coming out. Okay, even if you want to be transgender, okay, if you are an intersex individual, okay, if you want to look feminine, but at that moment, your responsibility is to reduce trauma, not to explode a shock. I might sound stupid or even for some homophobic, but this is how I saved a shelter for myself. I made my sexuality a part of the communication in a very subtle, boring, one of the topic kind of a way. I was very much sure that I don't want to bring shock while I'll introduce who I am to people. Often we do this, according to me, a mistake that we come out and put the other person in shock. And then that person has no space to have a dialogue with you. So, so I told you I lost my father at 20. I came out at 27. In those 7 years, my joint family was standing like thick and thin with me. Yeah, I was falling down and brittling into pieces. My extended chachas, taus, my uncles, my aunts were there to hold me. My cousins were there to hold me. But the day I came out, if 30 of them out of 100 people are against to who I am, why will I forget to all the goodness they have done? I was not ready for it. You
True.
know, So I really practiced gratitude at that moment while they were ridiculing me and boycotting me. By remembering all the good they have done, by saying the fact that it's okay, they don't know me yet, it's okay. And even if they want to boycott you, it's okay, but they have been good to you. There's
It's
nothing to
beautiful.
fight.
Akash, you've just actually brought to home a very beautiful and important point. It is a
And all 30
partnership.
people are back in my life, Raga, by now.
Yeah, and it takes time for, I mean, if we took, exactly like you said, if we take so long to accept it ourselves, why shouldn't we give the opportunity to the other person to take their time as well? And over time, people do come around and come back, because the love for you and the respect for us is far more than the hatred towards the community or knowledge. Justice Venkatesh Anand, that is a fantastic, I mean, testimony of how, if you don't know about something, go and educate yourself and then make a decision. Isn't that what it taught us? So I
Oh,
want to
he
go
was
back.
amazing.
Amazing. No, I want to go into a little bit of the mental health issue
If
part
I
as
may
well.
add one thing,
Please,
I
please.
wish he could have been on the bench for decriminalization of Section 377. He could have let the rights be placed there and then.
I agree. I agree. But I think he will play a major role going forward. That's my feeling, and it's very important to the community that we have people like him. Akash, I want to come back to another topic which is very, very prevalent in our community, that of mental health. And I'm also going to talk about a subject matter which is called body shaming. And
Yeah.
a lot of people in the community, and it's my observation, I have been there. When I was going through my own struggles, I found myself reaching out to food as a comfort. If I was stressed, I would eat. If I was stressed, I would drink. That contributed to my, like what you said, I became huge at one point. I've also lost a lot of weight since then. So, and I realized in hindsight, it was a lot to do with the times that we were going through. So we kind of attach, we take safety when there's no safety around us. We take safety in whatever it is. In my case, it was food. I know of friends who take drugs or substances, substance abuse. So can you talk to me about that whole mental trauma that you were going, mental health issues, and do you think in some way it was the reason that when they body shamed you or you had gained weight, that your comforter?
Yeah, I can tell you, I never realized that I was in depression while I was in. Yes, I was eating and hogging and was doing all of that. I still, even today, do that once when I'm low. It can come back to you anytime. It's not a solution 24/7. But you know what healed me was moving towards books and YouTube. So while people were boycotting me, while I was ridiculed, while I was being alienated in my own classrooms and stuff, and YouTube was very new, I started Googling and you doing YouTube and reading books. And I saw a movie called The Milk.
The what? Milk.
Milk. It's a movie, if you have not watched, you have to watch. Like, I even today go back to that movie to gain my own confidence again. It's a movie on Harvey Milk, the first US openly gay senator who used his gender orientation in the space of activism and politics. That movie in early 2000, while they were my formidable years, impacted like anything to me and made me understand that who you are is worth living, worth fighting and resisting for. To all the activism you see in me is just 30% or 10% or 5% to that man's activism and ideology. That movie changed my life. And one movie more I would say is the movie Earth, which stars Shabana Azmi. Okay, and it has some fascinating songs. That movie talks about, as I told you, for a long I thought my being gay is all about revolving around a man. So that movie also talks about that a feminism or femininity or your existence as a woman has nothing to do with a man in the picture. So these two movies, while because I was in depression, they came in as healings to me. They carved my so such. I had never had a therapy. I never even disclosed to anyone that what I was going through. I was suicidal. I did all of that. वो सब करा, you know, of doing that, and then he was like, oh दर्द हो रहा है, एकदम एकदम नहीं जा सकते क्या, दर्द होगा तो नहीं करते हैं. So I was doing all of that, but these movies, so books, helped me a lot, helped me to recover and heal. And now what heals me and make me stable is that I go every day for my evening walks. And I don't go to a same place, Raga, every day. So I like to see what's happening around me. Why I'm talking about evening walks is because it makes me aware of what's happening around me. And that keeps me balanced, that keeps me aware, that keeps me in gratitude. And if I fact check things like gratitude and balancing myself, I think depression is something. See, depression, I'm not saying is a thing which where there's no clinical help needed. But so many times we can practice gratitude or practice the fact that stop victim blaming ourselves, Stop being vulnerable or be irritated by seeing an influencer on Instagram. So many times we see our life very low and shallow. It might be as well. But the day you will look down and see there are other people living far underprivileged life than ours, they you will feel thankful to what you have, and that might help you heal.
Fantastic. I love the positivity that you always bring, Akash. It is so important because you're so right. We become so victimized. We feel so sorry for ourselves all the time. It is important to see the other side. because we have to heal. I mean, there is only two ways to live, right? Bitter or better. That choice we have to make every day. You and I make a choice to be better. I don't want to be bitter. I have nothing against the world every
Same.
day, because when you practice gratitude, when you practice that the magic is inside you, and that, and you know what you said about, when coming out and give people time, give your parents time, we understand that. We understand why people say things. That's the reason they say things, right? These are all slurs because they don't understand. Let's take time and let's be patient to teach them, to educate them, spread awareness. These coming out stories, that we're talking about will help us. Akash, I hope I still have you with me. I hope Akash is still, can still hear me? Is Akash still around? He's gone. God, now what happens? Yeah, he's back. Yeah, we'll take it. Take it. I've just written the number, huh? When we can start. Is he in? Yeah. Yeah, it's okay. We'll wrap it up. Do we have to send another link? No, no. But there was it's a deferred quite a bit. His lips and I were not matching sometimes. It was, it was a good story. I'm asking him to join back. I think it's having internet issues, possibly.
I'm so sorry. Something happened with the net.
No problem. No problem.
How? No idea how.
It's okay. So we'll wrap it up anyway, because we have to keep it under an hour. But when wonderful conversation, Akash.
Yeah.
We're all right, hey, Nicola? So I'll continue. So I'll, yeah, 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 yeah. So Akash, I'm going to start. Okay, you ready? 59.50. Okay. So Akash, I'm fascinated by all that you're saying. I just wanted to bring back one more question for you. So, people get confused between sex and the whole sexuality and gender thing, right? Can you explain to me in your simple words to the audience?
Uh, I feel I still feel confused about it. To be honest, because I'm like, now today I'm very much beyond tags. I love the idea of being queer or gender fluid. Now, yeah. So, and Raga, while fighting one tag of people considering as boy or mean cisgender male, I was actually not just fighting being boy. I had to one fine day fight myself for being gay also. I was restricting my horizon of saying okay gays to ye nahi karte. This might not look good of a gay doing it, or a feminine gay doing it, or this is what a feminine gay has to do and to be like. So obviously gender and sexuality are two different. Gender is hair, sexuality is the body part we are born to, which we can really transform with the help of our heart and mind and soul. you know is how I would say कि जो रूह है ना, जो रूह का
The
जो
soul,
रूह का जिस्म
spirit.
है, जो रूह का जिस्म है, वो जिस्म के जिस्म से फर्क है. तो रूह का जो अपना जिस्म है ना, उसको रूह के जिस्म, उसको जिस्म के जिस्म से मत देखो.
So separate yourself from the soul, spirit, and the
And
body.
the
Because
body,
yeah,
yeah,
they're two different things. Akash, I've just really, when I brought you, when we decided, Nicola and I, to bring you on coming out of India's series, the idea was to understand you as a person, your journey, because it's everyone's journey is different. We've had so many other speakers here as well, and beautiful stories. And your story is again so different to the other stories. You come from an extended family, joint family system, Aggarwal, the only son to after five daughters. So the patriarchy, you have to take the legacy forward, which you are as Akassh K Aggarwal, which you're doing it. You don't have to be anything or anybody. And in the life that we lead right now, the LGBTQIA community, which doesn't end, the spectrum doesn't end, the boxes don't end, you have found a space for yourself. And I love that about you. And that space that you've found, you have also included so many other people. The fact that you're spreading awareness, spreading the message, and we are all learning from you, Akash. I have learned so much from you. I make it a point to follow you on on your social media, because I learn from you every day. And I'm sure there are many others who are watching this show will be learning and would have learned a lot. Is there a message you want to give our audience before we end the show?
yeah. My message to my co-queers and to people from our community is this, that let's role reverse our acceptance game. Stop seeking acceptance, start giving acceptance. Accept your parents as who they are, as not knowing who you are. Stop expecting anything from the world who has nothing to do with who you are. They have no idea. Is it, if you cannot, if you don't know, how would anybody else know before you or after you, when you took your own time? So stop expecting and accepting from a misogynist, sexist, casteist, classist, elitist society which is full of its own germs to accept you. Accept them, heal them, work towards a better society. One quote which I believe and I love Gandhi for is be the change you wish to see. Do that. The day you'll self accept yourself and accept them as who they are, you're sorted, half battle done. And to parents, and to siblings, and to friends, and to the society at large, if you don't want to support them, we are there to support our own selves. Enough is enough. We don't want young kids on the road because you are in shame of their identity. If you bring them on the face of earth out of pleasure, love, or responsibility, then trust me, you are absolutely responsible for raising them well. Enough homophobia has to be addressed and has to be taken down.
Akash, what a fantastic message for the audience. Thank you for that. And you know what, like I said, be the change you want to see in the world. It's so important for us to remember that. And I love the fact that you said that it is not about them accepting us. Stop it. Let's accept them as well. Because homophobia can only be fought with patience, with love, and with our own understanding. So thank you, Akash. Thank you so much for sharing
Sorry.
so beautifully, so openly, so honestly. Thank you. And Nicola, thank you very much for your support in the back end in helping us bring this all together. I hope that the audience, you enjoyed this conversation, that if you have any feedback, thoughts, please write to us at theviewsroom@gmail.com. Thank you again for joining in. Please remember to follow me at Totally Out Now, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. If you want to share these stories, it's available on YouTube on my channel, Raga Olga D'silva. Please subscribe. The more you share, the more you share, the better world we will create
Shows the
together.
world that the more you care.
Exactly. Yeah, शायर मैं शायर तो नहीं. Okay. Remember, closets are for clothes and not to hide your truth. And Akash, we are going to bring in a small herbal pack for you from our partner, the Herbal Theory. Give us a little
All
bit
right.
of time because it's very cute little pack that you'll receive. Thank you very much. And signing out at Totally Out Now. You're watching Coming Out Stories from India presented by the Views Room. And thank you again.
Thank you.